Hello, we're going to do some algebra for starters today. So we're factorising. A quick look back at factorising would tell us that first of all, we need to be checking for common factors. We need to see if it's a difference of two squares, or if it's a trinomial, we can see if it'll go into two brackets. So a quick look at x squared plus 5x minus 14 shows you that there's no common factors. It's not a difference of two squares because we've got three terms. That does make it a trinomial, and so we're going to put it into two brackets. So just quickly recapping, remember what we do is put the x at the beginning of both brackets and we write down the pairs of factors of the third term. Then we look at the sign of the third term. That's negative, which means that the signs in the brackets have to be different because they're multiplying together to give us a negative answer. So if we have a look now at our pairs, remember what we've got to do is slot them in so that the result of those two lines that I just drawn is 5x, positive 5x, the middle term here. Okay, so it's got to be the 2 and 7 because 1 and 14 won't work. We want plus 5x, so the bigger number goes with the plus, so that'd be 7 there and 2 there. And a quick check shows us that we've got 7x from that, minus 2x from that line. So 7x take away 2x does give us the plus 5x that we need. So our answer, just to write it neatly without the scribbles, is x plus 7 times x minus 2. Then we've just got a little equation to solve here. First job is to get the letters on one side only. So we're going to bring baby to mummy and add 2x to both sides. This should be a bit easier for you to recall because we've done this quite recently. So we've got 5x plus 1 equals just 5 on the right hand side. Then take away 1 gives us 5x is 4, and then dividing by 5 gives us x equals, now remember when the number that you're dividing by doesn't go into the number that you divide in, you write it as a fraction first and then have a look at it. If it'll simplify, you should simplify it. You can write it as a mixed number if it's an improper fraction. If it's got an exact decimal, you can write it down. If it doesn't have an exact decimal, leave it as a fraction. Okay, so either of those answers would do. X equals 4/5 or x equals 0.8. You wouldn't need to give both. Okay, so now what we're doing today is changing between fractions and decimals. So we're going to look first of all at changing a fraction into a decimal. So we know there's some common fractions. We know that a half is 0.5 and that a quarter is 0.25, and we generally know that a fifth is 0.2, so 3/5 for example would be 0.6. But what about 5/8? Now remember, in a fraction, the number on the bottom, the denominator, tells you what you're dividing by. In that answer that we just gave a fraction there, remember that came from 4 divided by 5. Okay, so 4 divided by 5 led us to 4/5. So that must mean that 5/8 means 5 divided by 8. And we can set this out like a normal divide. But it sort of goes against our instincts a little bit, because normally we put the bigger number under the dividing sign. So anyway, 8 into 5 doesn't go, and that's expected because 5/8 is less than a whole one. So we need this to be 0 point something anyway. So 8 into 5 doesn't go, so we carry that 5. 8 into 50, 8 sixes are 48. So it's 6 times with 2 left over. We just keep adding as many zeros as we need. 8 into 20 goes twice with 4 left over. And 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So 5/8 is equal to 0.625 as a decimal. Okay, next one. 11 over 20, so that's 11 divided by 20. You've got to get the numbers the right way round, otherwise it just is wrong, okay? So 20 into 11 goes no times. Carry the 11. Now, you might not have seen carrying double digits before, but that's okay. But now remember, this says 110. So how many 20s are in 110? Well, there's 5 20s in 100 and 10 left over. So now we're looking at 20 into 100. So 20 into 100 goes 5 times exactly. So that's the answer to that one. It's finished because we haven't got any more remainders. We don't need to carry anything further. Okay, 4 and an eighth. Well, let's just deal with the eighth. So 8 into 1 doesn't go. Carry the 1. 8 into 10 goes once with 2 left over. 8 into 20 goes twice with 4 left over. And 8 into 40 goes 5 times exactly. So 4 and 1/8 is equal to 4.125. So we don't need to do anything with the 4 when we're doing our dividing. And the next one is 3 and 17/20. Okay, and 3 and 17/20, so we're doing 17 divided by 20, because we know it's going to be 3 point something. So 20 into 17 doesn't go. Carry the 17. 20 into 170. Well, 20 goes 8 times into 160. Carry 10. And then 20 into 100 goes 5 times. So 3 and 17/20 is 3.85. Okay, now these decimals are called terminating decimals because we get to the point where we've got nothing to carry on and that's the end of it. Okay. Sometimes though, you have non-terminating decimals, which means that they just go on and on and on. So we're going to round these ones to 2 decimal places. Now, if we're going to round, well, we'll see when we get on with it. So we're going to do 6 divided by 7. So 7 into 6 doesn't go. We need to carry the 6. 7 into 60, well, 8 7s are 56. So we've got 4 left over. 7 into 40 goes 5 times, because 7 5s are 35. And we only want this to 2 decimal places, and now we've got 2 decimal places. But we don't know yet what this number was going to be. So if we're rounding to 2 decimal places, we need the 3rd decimal place to be able to tell if this should be a 5 or a 6. Okay, so we keep going with the division to get this extra decimal place. So we said 7 into 40 went 5 times with 5 left over. And then 7 into 50 goes 7 times. And that would carry on there. But we've got enough decimal places now to round it. So to 2 decimal places, 6 sevenths is 0.86. Okay. Next one, 4 elevenths. So we're doing 4. Tell you what, I'll do that a bit further over, shall I? We're doing 4 divided by 11. So 11 into 4 doesn't go. So we carry the 4. Add a 0. 11 into 40, well, that would be 33. So that's 3 11s with 7 left over. 11 into 70 goes 6 times. So that's 66. So we've got 4 left over. But remember, we're going to need the 3rd decimal place to tell us whether this is 0.36 or 0.37. So let's go into the 3rd decimal place. 11 into 40 goes 3 times, and that would continue. But to 2 decimal places, this is going to be 0.36. Okay, get the hang of that. And then 5 ninths, so we'll do 5 divided by 9. Remember, you're always putting, if you've got a fraction that's less than a whole one, you're always putting the bigger number on the outside of the divide. So 9 into 5 goes no times, with 5 left over. 9 into 50, well, 9 5s are 45, so that's 5 with 5 left over. 9 into 50 goes 5 times, which is 45, and with 5 left over. So you can see what's going to happen here is this one's just going to go 0.555555. So if we're rounding it to 2 decimal places, it's 0.56, but 0.555555, keep going, is called a recurring decimal because it's the same digit that's repeating, and we can write that as 0.5 and then put a little circle or a dot above the 5, and that means that that 5 repeats. So sometimes you see that on your calculator. If it says, for example, like the 4/11th one, that would go 0.36363636. So that's how you would write that one, because those two digits. So then we're going on to changing a decimal into a fraction. Now this is quite straightforward. Remember our columns. So if you think about, let's do it over here. If you think about where the decimal point is, before the decimal point, you've got units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and then after the decimal point, you've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So these are tenths, these are hundredths, and these are thousandths. Okay. So if you've got, for example, 0.35, what you've got is 3 tenths and 5 hundredths, or altogether you've got 35 hundredths. So if you look at the last column that your digits appear in, that's going to tell you how to change it to a fraction. Okay, so 0.4, to change that to a fraction, we've got 1 decimal place, so that means they're tenths. So you would write 4 tenths, and then you can simplify that, because they're both in the 2 times table, to 2/5. Okay, 0.28, we've got 2 decimal places there, so we've got 28 hundredths. So just look at what column the last digit is in, and that tells you how to change it into a fraction. Then 28 and 100, they're both in the 4 times table, so that would give you 7/25. Okay, 0.95, 2 decimal places, so that's hundredths again, so 95 hundredths. So both in the 5 times table, so you've got, if you just work it out, you've got 19 fives in 95 and 25s in 100. Okay, so moving on. So we're going to the next decimal place with this one, so that must mean it's thousandths. So we've got 325 thousandths. So we need to divide top and bottom by the same amount so we can simplify the fraction. So let's see, 25 goes into both of those, okay? So there are 4 25s in 100. So in our 300, we've got 12 25s, and then we've got another one, so that's 13. Let's think about how many 25s are in 1,000. Well, there's 4 in 100, so there must be 40 in 1,000. So 0.325 as a fraction simplified is 13/40. Okay, next one, 0.006. Again, we're in the 3rd decimal place, so it's thousandths. So 6/1,000. They're both in the 2 times table, so 3/500. And that won't simplify any further because 3 doesn't go into 500. And then the last one, we're just going to ignore the 3 just now and concentrate on the 0.24. So the 24, so it's 2 decimal places, so it's hundredths. And we don't need to do our simplifying all in one go. Okay, so 24/100, they're both in the, let's say, 4 times table. So we've got 6 4s and 25 4s. And actually, we have done it all in one go there. I was going to do it by 2 first, but we didn't need to. So 6/25 won't simplify any further. So 3.24 is 3 6/25. Okay. So that's actually all we're needing to do today. We can change decimals into fractions and we can change fractions into decimals. So I just want you to practice that, and then we'll start dealing with percentages tomorrow. See you later.